All right, hello everyone. Welcome to our home office special webinar. I am thrilled that you can join us for this hour here. I am gonna go ahead and wait another minute or so to let everyone get settled in before we begin. So for those of you that were right on time, I very much appreciate it. You do have this last 30 seconds to a minute to grab that last drink of water or whatever the case may be, and I'll jump back on here in just a moment. So hold tight, everybody. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. My name is Scott Clayson. I am the Director of Marketing at TimeSolv. I'm sure you've all seen over the last week or so dozens and dozen and one webinars advertised about moving to this new world that we're all in of self-quarantine, shelter in place, whatever term you want to use. I want to make sure everyone can hear me okay. Looks like my microphone is working, but I have if somebody says they can't, that can't hear me. Looks like I'm doing okay here. So I have others that are saying they can hear me. So great. First of all, sincerely, I hope everyone out there is staying healthy, following all of the guidelines put forth to quarantine in place if that's where you're at. Keep social distancing if that's where you're at, and whatever the case may be. But we felt like TimeSolv was uniquely positioned to give a webinar about how to set up a successful home office for your business, because while most everyone's work and personal life has been disrupted by these events at TimeSolv, at least in our work life, not a thing has changed because we are a remote company and we have been for the last 14 years. So we thought we could not only help current TimeSolv users, but anybody who is establishing a home office out of thin air. And since we've lived this way for years, we feel like we're somewhat qualified. I will say this is the first time that I have done a webinar where I've actually turned on my webcam, but we're in that world of video conferencing. So I hope I don't accidentally do something embarrassing that well, you guys can all laugh about. But let me introduce myself here again. As I mentioned, my name is Scott Clayson. I am the Director of Marketing for TimeSolv, and I kind of feel like my whole life in the last 10 or 15 years has led up to be able to lead a webinar like this, because not only have I worked full-time from home for these last 4 years that I've been with TimeSolv, but in a previous position when my son, who's now 15, when he was a baby, I spent time working part-time from home, not only with him, but also with toddlers that were 18 months older than him that I nannied 3 days a week. So I spent time with young, small children, I mean 6-month-old baby, while also trying to get work done from home. So I've lived both that full 40 hours of work a week, you know, plus hours, whatever it might be, from my home office here that you see. And I've also done it with kids home, which I know is a reality that a lot of you are facing right now with kids home from school or not available for daycare because daycares have closed as well. And like I mentioned, TimeSolv has been a remote company for 14 of our 20 plus years in existence. So I know that a lot of us that are joining today are TimeSolv customers, some may not be. So just quickly to run through exactly who we are. TimeSolv started in 1999 as an online time and billing solution by Thomson Reuters. And then it was spun off as a private company in 2006. We're located here in Minneapolis, Minnesota, where I am, but we have our workforce spread out all over the world, here in the United States and also in other countries around the world. All of our employees have home office since 2006. And I like to put up here, yes, we have billed over $6+ billion has been billed through our time and billing software since 1999. And we want to thank all of our customers who are with us today for helping to make us successful. Because yeah, since I started at least in 2016, we have just about tripled our workforce here at TimeSolv as we've grown. So we feel like we have really a lot of insight into not only how to successfully run a home office, but how to even grow during that same time period. So we're going to get after it for about an hour today. I'll have an opportunity, everyone's on mute. This is being recorded. I will send out a link to the recording when it processes and it gets to me. And then we will take some questions in our Q&A section, our chat section. Every time, we have 3 different sections we're going to go through. Why don't I just show you the agenda and move on with it here. So here's the 3 kind of areas that I want to tackle today. First, I want to talk about the personal setup of your home office and some of the things that I've learned over time, as well as some of the hurdles and pitfalls and the mentality it takes to successfully home office. Then after that, I'll dive into some of the systems that TimeSolv uses to run our business remotely, the options that are available to you, and what to consider when deciding what tools your team should have. And I'm also going to get real candid and talk about some of the drawbacks and some of the obstacles that you face as a company that's all of a sudden thrust into a home officing environment, because you need to be at least self-aware of some of the pitfalls that I think can be out there. And then finally, the last third or so of the webinar we'll specifically talk to those who currently use TimeSolv for their time and billing needs, and anybody else who may be considering using us to show you some of the features within our software that you may not know existed or you never considered using because you didn't need it in your office system 2 weeks ago, but could be useful now. As you know, one of the values of TimeSolv is we truly want to help our customers be more successful by using our tools. And if there are tools that you didn't know we had that can help you in this transition, we really want to make sure that you guys are aware of it. It's going to be a high-level look at things. This is not a training session for TimeSolv users. If you need to get down into the details of how to set some of things up, I'm going to encourage you to contact our support team. So that's what we're looking to accomplish here in the next hour or so. Okay, so let's first talk about getting the home set up right. And yes, that is my home office that you're looking at in that picture, taken from right over here about a week or so ago. As you can see, this is a home office set up for somebody who works full-time from home. A lot of you probably, I'm sure, don't have the luxury of having a home office that's a dedicated room that is built to be an office. And for those of you with sharp eagle eyes, yes, I'm not afraid to admit I have a putting mat over there by my window to allow me to do a little putting when I'm on calls to practice and try to improve my golf game. But let's talk about how to get the home office set up dialed in, because there are some challenges. And I know that there are challenges, especially when I was doing this with toddlers and I didn't have a dedicated room like you see here now in the room that I'm in right now. I am old enough to remember WKRP in Cincinnati and the old sitcom from the 70s and 80s, which is fantastic. And the newsman, Les Nessman, if you remember him, and he used to have in their open office environment, from this picture you can see, he used to actually put tape on his office floor and made people pretend to knock to come in to the office. But the point is wherever you're having to work from, make that space your own and really own it. And by that, I mean, a lot of you don't have the luxury of a room like this. You may have to set up your work environment at the kitchen table. It might be on a counter in your kitchen. It might be the dining room table. It might be the laundry room. It might be in your garage if you're in a warm weather environment. One of our former coworkers that we had here, he lived with his brother in a 2-bedroom townhome. and he didn't have a spare room. The dining room was part of the living room. It was a relatively small townhome, and he set up his home office essentially in the corner of the living room. But the point is he made that space his office, and that was the dedicated, somewhat office space. If you can avoid the sitting on the kitchen counter and then closing up the laptop and that becomes where you're going to make dinner, please try to do that. A couple of houses ago that we lived in, our basement was unfinished, and I set up down there for a home office when I was starting to do this work with my son as a baby. Just plywood, a sheet of plywood and some concrete blocks or a sawhorse. It doesn't have to be elaborate. We're all hoping, obviously, this is fairly temporary, but the main idea here is if you can find a space that you can carve out that's dedicated and it's like, that's where mommy works, that's where daddy works when the kids are home, please make sure you do that. I think that's really important. I know it's not, you don't necessarily have that option when you're looking after little ones who are home from daycare or school, and maybe your work environment is going to change. I had to move my laptop when I was working with my son and the kids I was nannying. Sometimes we'd be in the basement because they were playing down in the basement, and I had it literally my laptop on my lap on a couch. Sometimes it was up in the kitchen while they were eating their lunch. So if you can find that environment, please do. Okay, so let's talk about equipment needs. And a lot of this depends on how long-term your home situation can be. So I'll talk about four main things. I already talked about the desk a little bit. Headset. You can see I'm wearing a wireless headset. It's not connected to anything. It's hooked up to the computer here, you know, via Bluetooth. Actually, it's a USB dongle that I have plugged in. For most people, just the regular, if you can see, I'm holding up a pair of just these iPhone earbuds that come whenever you buy an iPhone now. These generally are going to work good enough to plug into your computer's mic jack. Now, there is a challenge for those of you that are iPhone users in that the last several years, as you know, iPhone, you know, you now have the Lightning connector and they don't plug into the iPhone jack. There are adapters. They did ship with some of the earlier, when they first came out with the Lightning connector, they would have a little adapter to allow you to plug it into a regular microphone jack. The point being that if you have a set of headphones like this floating around, almost all of them have a microphone part of the connection. It'll work fine for the environment you're going to be in for the next couple of weeks. If you feel you need to or you want to go kind of one step up from that, because I'll be honest, if you know you're going to be on a lot of calls, these are not the most comfortable thing you're ever going to wear. In that picture you see there, that is a $36 solution, really nice headset. I had an earlier version of that previously before I got this wireless one. One thing that's nice, and I do recommend actually not going with wireless. These tend to A, be a little bit more expensive, and B, can sometimes lose their connection. They're not quite as reliable as ones like the one you're looking at that has a USB cord to it. The good news is these cords oftentimes are quite long. Here's my old one I keep as my backup, and it has quite a long cord. So I do have a lot of freedom to walk around even when I was plugged into the USB port with it. And one thing that's nice is it has a volume control here. I can mute myself quickly if I need to sneeze or cough or whatever the case may be. So it's not a huge investment. You can get a pretty darn good headset, USB wired headset for under 50 bucks, under 40 bucks, and it'll serve you really well. Generally, all you have to do is just plug it in. It's gonna just be ready to go, and you don't have to worry about it when you're doing conference calls like this through your computer, through the various tools that we're gonna show you. Monitor, you notice from the picture, and you can sort of see I have two monitors that I have here, my main monitor and one off to my left. And if you had that type of setup at your regular work office, I would highly recommend you somehow find, if you can get to your office, bring those home. Hopefully everyone's, you know, can accommodate that. Because if you're used to that type of setup, it's great to try to replicate it with a home office. I don't think I could ever go back to a just working off a laptop screen full time all the time, not after having two big monitors in front of me. It's a luxury for sure, and again, depending on your space limitations, you may not have that choice, completely understand, but if you have the ability to do it, I would for sure do it. Okay, webcam. This webcam that I am using right now is just a $35 Logitech webcam I got off of Amazon. It does have a microphone built in, so I didn't necessarily have to use this headset here. I don't think it's necessarily the best, but again, if you know you're going to be doing more video conferencing, it's something that your firm or your business has decided, yes, we definitely want to be a part of this. There are some really low-tech solutions. For those that do have laptops, they have built-in webcams. I'm not using mine. I use the 2 monitors, even though I do have a laptop. Again, you're not going to have a webcam if you have just a regular desktop tower that you use for your computer. So the investment in a webcam is not much at all, 35 bucks. I'm sure you can get some even cheaper than that. It was just one I found. It had good reviews on Amazon. I had it in 2 days, and I was up and ready to roll. And then the desk environment, as I mentioned earlier, improvise with whatever you can. But the main point, I'll make it again, is make it your own, own it, and make sure that everyone knows that is the space where I'm working. Okay, I am still using the headset slide. That is why, for those that are asking. Let's go over, and the next thing I want to talk about is the right mentality. This is super important and something that it took me time to get into, especially when I started working full-time from home here at TimeSolv and not doing the nannying work. And that is getting into that mindset. My morning routine, you might have read this in a lot of different places that talk about setting up a home office. My morning routine is essentially exactly the same as when I used to go into the office every day. Took a shower, combed my hair, shaved, all of that. Yes, I'm not wearing necessarily the nicest clothes that, I'm not wearing my, a button down shirt or a khaki type of thing. I will wear sweatpants and a hoodie sweatshirt, but at least I'm getting dressed out of my pajamas. I get out of my slippers and I put on regular shoes, even though I'm headed downstairs. Even if I know nobody's going to see me the entire day, except for my wife and kid when they come home from school on the days where I'm, by myself, obviously not an issue right now, I still get dressed. The other main issue, or another main hurdle to get over mentally, I think, is when you are at your desk and you are at your computer, you're at work. You need to mentally separate, I'm at work now, I'm not at home. You have to kind of separate your house life mentality. You have to flip a switch somehow. It's easy for people who have a dedicated space like I do, but if you are just walking over to that corner that you set up your home office, it is like I am at work. You have to just block out and pretend like there's walls around you. That's really going to help you. One thing that definitely helps me, and this could help you as well, depending again on the kid situation and your spouse that might be home with you right now. I have a speaker right over here on top of just a portable Bluetooth speaker where there's some great Spotify playlists that are concentration playlists that you can use for background noise if you need that to help with your concentration. The other thing I found is, and our CEO actually really encourages this, is take a break every hour or so. When you are working from home, and especially if you're alone in a dedicated space or you don't have other distracting things around you, it's very easy to get yourself into you're just tunnel visioned onto stuff, and you can get a lot of stuff done. It's fantastic oftentimes, but you need to make sure that you pull out at some point and realize I got to take a break mentally. You get those organic, natural interruptions in your regular office life all the time. In fact, sometimes you might be ticked off because you get interrupted too often. Here, it might be you're not getting interrupted enough, and you kind of need that. I will go and walk up and down the stairs in my house. I'll go, if it's a nice day, I'll go walk outside around the block. I'll stand up and do body weight squats just to get the blood moving. I do have a standing desk here. Again, I have my dedicated home office, so I have a desk that can go up and down. I can stand at work, which is great. But something to just take a break every hour or so, 5 minutes, that really helps in breaking up your day quite a bit. I realized a little time into my home office life that there was just something it was odd, and I couldn't put my finger on it when I got done with the end of the day. And I realized, you probably never thought about it, but when we commute home, that is our time to decompress. My old job, I used to drive 25 minutes one way to and from my office. And I think we all take that commute time, whether it's 10 minutes, 25 minutes, an hour, whatever it used to be, That was our decompression time, where you moved from work Scott to home Scott, in my case. You don't get that with a home office. And it took me some time to kind of figure out, like, why do I'd walk out of my office and all of a sudden I'm being asked about, hey, do we have the ingredients for dinner, blah, 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 can you help with, I'm like, I'm still thinking about that spreadsheet I was just looking at 10 minutes ago. I haven't made the full transition, that shift from work life to home life. One of the things I have found to overcome that hurdle is I'll spend like the last 10 minutes before I turn off my computer at night doing something non-work related I'll go check my social media. I'll look at stories that I want to read about the Minnesota Twins, my favorite baseball team. Whatever it is, it's not work related, it's not necessarily home life related, but it creates that transition time for me. And I also make a point of, when I'm done with work, I am done. I shut down my computer completely. I don't put it just to sleep, knowing that I could quickly get back on the computer if need be. I am done, and I am done for the day. So creating that mental barrier between the two, I think is really important. Okay. Obviously, for most of us, we have families that we're dealing with during this time as well. Our spouses are probably home with us. Our kids are probably home with us. Um, I will say this, if you are of the age, your children are of the age where they're still taking afternoon naps, that's golden time. That's go time. I got so much work done when my son was at that age. And this is obviously for those that, toddlers and babies, of being the most productive I've ever been probably in my life during a 2-hour time period when naps were being done. I also think it's important to communicate the boundaries with your kids of being at work. Even though you're physically there, you're not mentally there. You're mentally at work. So make sure you communicate that. Be prepared for those inevitable interruptions that are going to happen. If you do have small children, toddlers around, even with tag teaming with your spouse, you prepare yourself that you're probably only going to get maybe 4 to 5 good hours of work in. You're not going to probably get that full 8 hours. You might need to put time in the evening when the kids are asleep, things that don't require talking with others and so on. It's just the reality of it. It's just the reality we're living right now. You're probably going to also have to live with coordinating your schedule with your spouse when it comes to having scheduled calls with clients or anybody that you have to, like, you're going to call them at 1:30 in the afternoon. Well, does your spouse also have a scheduled call at 1:30? If so, what are the kids doing during that time period? So you got to make sure there's a lot of communication in your family happening so that everyone is on top of things and it doesn't go sideways on you. Use the strengths of your children to help the family. I know a lot of toddlers even, they love to be helpers. They want to be big helpers. And if you have that talk with them, like, hey, the way you can be a big help is to make sure that mommy gets or daddy gets their time at their desk, and whatever the case may be. And I've read this in a couple places, and I agree with this. Don't be so hard on yourself during this time where you have to home office. If your kids aren't completing, the perfect craft every day, if they're not building the Play-Doh soldier that is perfect every day, if they're not engaged with all these amazing stimulus activities all day long while you have to do work, don't beat yourself up over it. If they have to sit and watch Finding Nemo for the 13th time, then so be it. It's okay. This is temporary. We're all going to be winning Parents of the Year here with what we're trying to juggle for these next several weeks. And to be honest, I'm a total Gen Xer, a kid who grew up in the 70s and 80s. If there are times where they're bored because they don't have that overly structured schedule that they used to have, it's okay. Sometimes you can get real creative in what you're going to end up doing if you don't have everything kind of spoon-fed to you. So it's, again, don't be so hard on yourself is one thing I would just emphasize. The right mindset really goes a long way. This is all great adventure that we're on here during this pandemic, and we're all at least going through it together. And so everyone's going to be very accepting of that. You're doing the best you can. Nobody expects you to be perfect, for sure. So with that, that's your personal setup. You're ready to go. Anybody have any questions on anything that I covered here on the personal setup of your home office before I move on and talk about kind of a company-wide setup? All right, I don't see any questions that are coming in. That's good. So let's go ahead and move on. Okay, full disclosure, I have no idea who these people are. These are not TimeSolv employees. This is just an image I found on Google. Okay, so you're good on the home front. Now it's time to figure out how your company is going to work together during this time. And first I'm going to talk about the software tools that we at TimeSolv use to work together, many of which I'm sure you're going to be familiar with. I'll probably not be breaking any new ground here. I'm also going to talk about why we chose the particular tools we did and others that we tried and we weren't so in love with. And also share just some other tools I know are available. We'll then talk about how to create the right culture. And this is really the most important thing, I think, to make remote working successful. And then I'll be really frank in discussing what I have felt like over the last 4 years I've learned in some of the challenges and the obstacles that remote companies face. So you don't have that, since you don't have that normal experience. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about some of the software that we personally at TimeSolv here use. Obviously, you guys all know because you're here, we use Zoom for our video and screen sharing tool. We are a software company. We do all of our training of our customers, as most of you know as customers, using Zoom, so we can do screen shares. It's a fantastic tool. We've used several others in the past. We landed on Zoom about 18 months ago. I know they've seen a massive spike in usage in this last 2 weeks. One thing I can say is we have not experienced any degradation of bandwidth or the ability to do anything really within Zoom since it's been such an uptick in people using Zoom. There is a free version of Zoom that anybody can use that gives you either 40 or 45 minutes of screen time. And then it'll cut off. And I believe you can only do it as a one-on-one meeting with their free version. We obviously have the paid versions and we have various licenses. I think it's only like maybe 15 bucks per user per month. And you're able to then obviously with the paid version record the sessions that you're doing, so you can send links to it, you can review things and so on. I have a quick question that came in here. Let me check. Okay, so we'll cover that question later. The other thing that we use for communicating to our own employees internally is a tool called Flock. Most of you use something similar, probably Slack. It's our messaging app. It's actually the way I probably communicate the most with other employees, and it's just a quick back and forth. The good news is you can set up channels. So I have my entire marketing team is in one Flock channel. The sales team is in another, so we can all be communicating together. This is where for support teams, sales teams, any team sort of environment, it's a great way to be able to communicate quickly back and forth about any issues. You don't have to get on the phone real quick. You type out, it's a great way to communicate. We're using the free version. There is a free version of Flock. The one caveat with that is it does not store any messages older than a month. So keep that in mind if you need to have a catalog of the messaging that goes back and forth. I know a lot of businesses, a lot of software companies will use like Slack or Flock as a messaging tool for their customers as well. They'll set up and give access to customers a support channel, let's say, or as a law firm, you're working with particular clients, you want to do some quick messaging back and forth, send them, set up for each one of your clients or matters, set up a channel that you can do that quick messaging back and forth with them. Accessing Slack and Flock, a lot of it is free. It's a great way to do communication with your clients. You can also share files. I know with Slack and with Flock, we haven't used it. You can do video conferencing even within those tools as well. So as a way to communicate with your customers, I would really look hard at those tools as well. We do use Skype really only for one-on-one communication, just basically calling others internally here. Skype, we have found, while you can do screen sharing with Skype, it has these hiccups. It seems to slow down your web browser a bit, for us at least. But it is a great fast tool if I need to call one of the other employees and have a fast conversation with them. For some of my team, I just set up Zoom meetings quickly. One thing that's nice about Zoom, and I'll show you this really quick, is if it's integrated with your calendar, we use G Suite for our calendaring. And one thing I'm not going to show you here is the tools you're probably already using, like Gmail, Outlook. Your emailing doesn't really matter if you're home office or not. You know how to use that stuff. This is stuff that uniquely might need to be using for your home office. The one thing that is nice about Zoom is I can quickly, let me bring up my calendar and I can show you what this looks like. So I'm in Chrome here, and I have a Chrome Zoom add-on. When I go to create a meeting here, I can just, because I have an integrated Zoom with my G Calendar, my Google Calendar, I can just quickly call this, this is my Scott Clayson meeting, make it a Zoom meeting, and it automatically creates all that information that you all use to access the meeting. Here's my join meeting URL, the phone numbers, and then when I invite people to it, they see this right in their invitation. So it's a great, fast way to set up meetings quickly. Okay, walking down the other tools that we use for sharing documents, we use both a combination of Google Drive and Dropbox, which I'm sure most of you are familiar with both those tools. Our marketing team uses a project management tool called Teamwork. There are dozens out there, and we tried a lot. There's Basecamp, there's Asana. Todoist is a lightweight version of that. There is Rike is another one that I've heard. Trello is a good one that you can use. There's a lot of tools out there to manage projects and tasks and so on. Our dev team also uses Jira, which is another kind of real high-end development type tool. You guys, law firms aren't going to probably be working on that. And then our phone lines are also voice over internet, VoIP. A lot of you are familiar with Vonage as a VoIP tool here in the US. We use a business one called D3 Unified. So all of our phone calls and I answer phones using software on my computer that is just like calling in or making any other phone call. I just use the headset, same thing. That's another important thing. I know we've learned this just in trying to get a hold of prospects and customers this last week or so. Please make sure that your phones, your office phones at your office, are forwarding to where you currently are via your cell phone so that people can get a hold of you. If that hasn't happened yet, you got to make sure that's in place, obviously. Okay, other software tools that are out there that are available. For conferencing, I've used all three of these: Uber Conference, GoToMeeting, and Join.me. Join.me is what TimeSolv used to use a couple of years ago. It was very easy because users didn't have to necessarily download software to access the meetings. They could just go to a web browser page. However, when it came to sharing their screen, because we want our customers to share their screen oftentimes to see what they're doing in TimeSolv, it did require them to download a piece of software. We ran into some issues with Macintosh users, and it was just getting to be more and more of an issue, so we moved to Zoom. GoToMeeting is a very popular conferencing tool, webinar tool. So is Uber Conference less so. I've been in both of them. I don't find them as intuitive and as easy to get into the meetings as I do with Zoom, but you're certainly welcome to try those out. I do know that both of these tend to be a little bit more expensive than Zoom were. I know that for a fact. These other logos here are for messaging messaging with your other employees and potentially with customers. Google Hangouts, if you use the Google Suite, we used to use Google Hangouts before we used Slack for messaging, works great. Slack is really well known. Microsoft has one called Microsoft Teams. If you're a firm that uses Office 365, you already have access to using Microsoft Teams as a messaging app back and forth between your employees. So check that out if you're a firm that uses Office 365. As far as it comes to document storage, other options out there besides Google Drive and Dropbox is OneDrive, which is Microsoft. Again, Office 365 users, you already have access to this. Box, which I know is popular out on the East Coast, especially in the Boston area. I know a lot of firms that use that. And then NetDocuments, which we have an integration. We being TimeSolv's application integrates with NetDocuments and actually with Dropbox. NetDocuments is built more for a little bit bigger firms, maybe 15 users and more. Really sophisticated tool in document management. It is really fantastic if you're looking for a really good way to manage your documents. And I'm going to show you here in just a little bit about how you can use TimeSolv's tools to manage documents. So the point being is, if you think of it this way, if there's a communication or a document sharing or some other tool that you think might help you, just do a Google search for it. You'll find it. There are so many tools out there. A lot of them have free trials like we do. A lot of them are doing specials right now because of the situation that everybody is in. I had one of our customers today send me an email before this webinar. She was saying, hey, what would you do for, I used to have sticky notes on file folders for special notes for customers. How would you suggest you do that now in working from home because they're at our office? And I thought about it and I was trying to think, what kind of maybe a sophisticated tool you could use, but I actually came up with, I would just create an Excel file called special notes for customers and have for each row the name of the client and the matter and whatever the special note was. So I could always go to that one document that holds special notes for all of my clients. Now, I don't know if she has hundreds or dozens or how many there were, but sometimes you can also go with a really low-tech solution. I don't really have a lot of paper or things that I write notes on here. I will oftentimes use all sorts of online tools. I'll just write something simple in a Word document and save it and put it, store it to make sure it's somewhere where I know where I can find it and remember it. So that's really an important way to make sure that you're keeping on top of the information that you used to handwrite stuff. A lot of tools out there, could be as simple as an Excel file that can help you keep track of things. Okay, so you have all the tools in place, but you need to do, this is really, I think, the most important kind of things we can talk about today, and that is creating that work from home culture. Otherwise, being successful is going to be a challenge. And I think it comes down to setting the expectations for everyone that's working from home. Our CEO likes to say, we have a lot of freedom here at TimeSolv, but that freedom is not free. There's various responsibilities that come with that. And there's ways to make sure everyone is accountable and everyone knows what everyone else is accountable for. So I'm going to talk first about daily and weekly scrums and what that exactly means, how to communicate with internal staff and with customers, task-based work, if you're not doing it now, why you should, and KPIs. So let's talk about scrums. Scrums is actually, that term of conducting a scrum comes from agile software development. It was the idea that developers, as they're developing software, they would come together once a day for short scrums and do stand-up meetings, even perhaps 15 minutes. Scrum can be used in a lot of different ways. In terminology-wise. We do at TimeSolv a sales scrum every morning at 8 a.m. Central Time. So I know my workday is going to begin. I have a meeting every morning at 8 a.m. and we do it on Zoom. This, more than anything, is that water cooler gossip chat session, as much as it is a session to talk about, what our sales goals are for the day, what are some of the priorities we have, what are upcoming meetings, what are some of the challenges where we have bugs that we might have found, those work-related things. But it's also, we can easily go 20 minutes and not talk about one thing TimeSolv related. We are socializing. And it's important to get that socializing in. I think we all know that we have, I have an old coworker said, she said, I have this much chat in my body, I have to get out every day. And that's one way to get that chat, out. Okay, let's, we also have then, first of all, that scrum only lasts 30 minutes. We try to keep that hard and fast that by 8:30 every morning, we're gonna get off the call and start with our day. That's important too, to keep it brief, get the stuff done and then move on. We also have, I conduct also a marketing scrum with my entire marketing team at 10 a.m. every morning. And here's some of the things, I didn't make this up. I've went and did some research about how to conduct these scrum sessions effectively. Is I ask every member of the team goes around and tells everyone else what are the 1 to 3 main objectives that they want to accomplish today, because that's realistically all you're going to probably get done is 1 to 3 big things for the day. I don't need a laundry list of every single little thing that you're doing. What are at a high level the 1 to 3 objectives you want to get done today? What obstacles do you face in completing those objectives, and whose help do you need? So it's a great way to kind of just level set where everyone is at, and a lot of good discussion comes out of that. I need help here, here's what I need, and so on. That is a fantastic way to keep everybody on task, to make sure that everyone knows what everyone else is doing. That's kind of a big thing that you don't always get, obviously, when you're working by yourself. Okay, so the 800-pound gorilla. Oh, and by the way, I should mention weekly scrums. At TimeSolv, we do once a week all call, where the entire staff is on a Zoom meeting with our CEO who conducts it. We report good news. We talk about upcoming, we do it every Monday, all the goals for the week. Every kind of department then gives their short report. It doesn't last more than 30 minutes, but it is just a good way for all of us to be in communication with each other as needed. So that's the daily and weekly scrums that we do. I think more than anything, if you can make sure that you are having a discussion, an actual on the phone talk with everyone on your team once a day during this time period, it's going to go a long way. Okay. Now, the 800-pound gorilla in the room is how are we going to communicate effectively, or to webcam or not to webcam? Do we message somebody? Do we call somebody? How do you communicate effectively with a remote company? At TimeSolv, there are some employees here that I've never seen on a video conference, and I've worked with them for years. We don't turn on our webcams all the time. Not everybody has a webcam. They have a desktop environment. They don't have a webcam. My marketing team, about a year ago, not quite a year ago, I think it was last summer, we made the decision that once a week, we were going to turn on our webcam so we could all see each other and look at each other. And that's why I bought my $35 webcam. And I think it's been fantastic in being able to now see my teammates. And it's just once a week. Part of it is there can be bandwidth issues with video, depending on the strength of your internet signal. And I know, and I'm sensitive to this as well, that whether you're a man or a woman, sometimes you don't feel comfortable being on camera. And especially if you're working from home, you know, I know the reality of life is females are judged harsher than males are in how we look and our appearances. And having to put on makeup and do your hair and, you know, dress the way you're going to be seen may not be a hurdle you necessarily want to clear every day. Totally get that and understand that, which is why, like for our team at least, we decided to do it once a week. So at least we knew the day that it was going to come. And we're prepared for it, but it wasn't an every single day sort of thing. We have found that's a happy medium for us, for sure, but you all will have to decide that internally. The other last two things here with creating the culture is we've really tried in the last 2 years, especially as we've grown quite a bit as a company, to make sure that we're all doing task-based work. We have our yearly goals at TimeSolv. We break them down into quarterly goals, then those become monthly goals, and then of course that becomes weekly and daily as you break it all down. And you break those down into tasks, and everyone knows what everyone else's tasks essentially are to rise up and roll into those higher level goals that we're trying to achieve. And that comes to KPIs, key performance indicators. Everybody on my marketing team, everyone on the sales team, everyone on our development team, they all have specific numbers that they're trying to hit. And they know what they are on a quarterly basis, they know what they are on a monthly basis, and they know how to break that down into a weekly and daily basis. It's easy if you have the right tool. We use HubSpot for our marketing automation and our customer relation management. It's something that as a law firm you probably aren't going to use a CRM type of tool. But it's a way we manage all of our prospects, clients, and customers, and leave notes so we can all talk to one another, know what everyone else is doing with others. Whether you're have a home office or not, that's important to do. But the point is that I can see easily in HubSpot, I can create reports that we can see easily if we're on track with our goals. So setting goals, KPIs that are, there's this acronym, you know, SMART goals, okay? They are measurable, simple, measurable, attainable, something that is God, I'm forgetting all the SMART goals now. But you want to just, I forget what the acronym exactly stands for, but you want to do goals that you know you can meet, that are attainable, that are measurable goals. That's the key takeaway here. Okay, so let's now talk about some of the challenges and obstacles that I feel like I've encountered while working at TimeSolv. The biggest one for me is the creative energy you don't get when you're working from home that you get when you're in person. It's that organic energy, and you know, work with me on this scenario. We've all been there. You pass somebody in the hallway with a cup of coffee and the conversation on a Monday morning starts with like, hey, Steve, how was your weekend? And 15 minutes later, that conversation has gone a direction that has led to a really fantastic idea or has solved a problem that you guys have been chewing on for a while, just all because of this organic conversation and energy that comes from being that face-to-face human interaction. And you don't get that when you work from home. We are social beings, right? So you don't always, there's a buzz sometimes in an office. If somebody gets a big sale or the dev team just pushed out a new release or whatever, in the case of a law firm, a major matter was just tied up. That creates energy and buzz that you can't really ever replicate in a home office. Just be aware of that. I don't have a right answer for that. The way we work with it, at least for me, is that gets into the forced communication. Every time I'm talking with a coworker, it's deliberate. It's not me just like hanging over the side of a cubicle going, hey, did you see the Vikings game last night? It is, I'm messaging them, hey, do you have a minute to talk? And I'm calling them and having that kind of just quick conversation. And that can go one of two ways. Sometimes it's great because you do end up just chatting and you need that social interaction. Sometimes you ends up with that organic energy where you find an idea that you hadn't thought about before because you're talking back and forth. But sometimes also it's hard to get off the phone. You know how it is. There's a natural break when you're in a work environment where it's, like, well, hey, I should be getting back to my desk now. Get back to the, back to the salt mines or whatever the case may be. You don't get that when you're on the phone. You have to. It's kind of awkward sometimes to be like, well, I guess I should go now and get back to work and ending that phone conversation. So just be aware of that forced communication sometimes that you might have with your coworkers. The other limit, of course, then is the body language. I know there's studies out there about, what percent of our communication is done non-verbally. But it is true. And that, again, can cut both ways when you're doing a lot of discussions internally, at least. Sometimes it allows you, if you're on a call, to be a little bit more frank than you might be if you were sitting across a conference table from somebody. You're a little bit maybe more honest. But again, you just need to be aware that you just don't get that body language as much, especially if you're not doing webcams at all. The other thing to be aware of is inconsistent use of tools. Our downfall, I think, is we're using Dropbox and Google Drive for our document management. I think we could do a better job of consolidating it down into one major tool. It was easy when we were a smaller company. Now that we've grown and we have several dozen employees, it's something that we need to work on better. So just being aware of that, I think, is at least, I don't have the right answers. I just know be self-aware. You're going to run into those issues, at least in my experience, with that energy and that forced communication. And what do you do about it? And at least be aware of it so you can talk about it and figure things out. Whether it's as a lot of people are doing, quarantinis where they're having FaceTime or whatever, having a happy hour, everybody together, everyone's sitting at home and has a drink and they do happy hour at 6 o'clock every night, whatever, or on Friday, whatever you normally do. If you have office rituals that you can't do now, try to find what could be a substitute for those rituals. And that will help keep that cohesiveness, I think, of your firm moving. Okay. In this last 10 minutes or so, I do want to talk specifically about some of the tools within TimeSolv that can help firms that are using us and working from home. For those of you that aren't using TimeSolv right now and you don't necessarily need a time and billing solution, I'm not going to be offended. You can drop off now. I appreciate you being here. The whole point of this was to try to just get the ideas out there from a company that's done this for a long time. So thank you for coming. If you don't want to sit through this specific part of the webinar, for those of you that do use TimeSolv, there's a couple of things I'm going to cover here. We do have a document management solution built into TimeSolv. It's already available to you. We do have a task management solution built in, already available to you. I want to talk about, especially as we get near the end of March here and we're getting into the creating of your March invoices. I know a lot of firms are in the practice of they'll create their draft invoices, they'll print them out, send them to the associates or the partners who actually physically write the edits on them and so on. That's harder to do now. I'm gonna show you how you could potentially do that, how you can do that in TimeSolv. Cash flow is a big deal right now for a lot of firms. I know that. We're gonna show you, make sure you're aware of how you can get paid quickly using our integration with LawPay. And then we'll talk about one last tool we have, and that is our outsourced legal billing solution. So let me quickly share and bring up my, there's a couple of things I need to bring up in TimeSolv so you can watch them as I'm trying to navigate my, on my computer without actually sharing anything yet. Okay. I promise I'm going to share my screen in just a minute here. Or I shouldn't say share my screen, but be able to see what I'm doing here since I am sharing my screen. Okay, so let's talk about document management, first of all. I'm going to blow through this relatively quickly, okay? So let's take a look. When you're in TimeSolv, as you see, I'm logged in. I'm in my TimeSolv account. We have a document storage capability. This can be a short-term solution for you in sharing documents. You can access the document storage area of TimeSolv in one of two ways. You should have an area called Documents here, so go under Documents, and you'll see every single one of your clients in a folder. If I click on one of my clients, I'll see every matter that I have for that client. If I click again, you can create as many folders as you'd like within TimeSolv. I've just created these ones called Administration, Discovery, Intake Documents, Motions, Pleadings, and so on. Then I have a couple of documents here. That's one place where you can access the documents. The other place is right in the Clients and Matters, an area that you're all used to probably accessing. If I go into the same Amir as my client and consultant as my matter, there is a tab here called Documents, and this is showing me the exact same thing you just saw over here. Here's my folders, here are my documents. If you want to upload any new document, simply go to the folder where you want that document to live, or you can certainly do it right here at the root level. And you can click on New Document. You can then choose the file to upload. One caveat here, and it should, the maximum file size is 10 megabytes that you can upload to your TimeSolv account. That gets to be an issue if you're trying to upload video testimony, video depositions, that sort of stuff. Otherwise, you really have most other documents you'll be able to handle just fine. So you can upload the file here, give it a name, you can give it a description. You can also do tags. I created these 5 tags here. I did that under Documents and Settings. Once I upload those documents, you can do version controlling. Let me go back to this particular matter. Notice here this sample brief. First of all, the icon will tell you what kind of document it is, but notice it tells me there's 3 versions of this document. This is the description I have here. I can preview this document by simply clicking on this little magnifying glass icon, and you'll see the document here. I can preview and read it. I could click on it to download it. I could click on Edit here, and this is going to show me all the different versions. So I can see I have 3 versions of this document. You can leave notes about the versions that you have. Like, this is the version we should use for the court filing. You can see who created it and when they created it. So the first version of this was back on June 24th of 2019, and the last one was just a couple days ago. You can click on any one of these to download them. You can then upload a new version once you've made your edits, and you'll be able to, when you upload the new version, you choose the file here, and you can put whatever notes you need to put in. Like, no, this is the real final version that we're going to bring to court. So again, this is a way, temporarily at least, if you need to, you can manage documents that you might normally not, if you don't have a document management system in place, you don't have access to a server, take advantage of TimeSolv's built-in tool that we have here. When it comes to tags, I can come over here to Documents, and I can search for all documents that I've tagged as intake. And this shows me all the documents and where they live, the client and matter and folder, if there's a folder for them. And then you can do anything you want with it here. Okay, so take advantage of that. If you need more help on how to set up your documents, please contact support, okay? Okay, next, again, quickly here, task management. In every single client matter in TimeSolv, or I should say every single matter, you have the ability to create a matter plan. When you're in a matter, if you click on Matter Plan right here, you're going to be able to create phases and tasks. If you assign team members to work on this particular matter, you can make sure that they get assigned a particular task. You can even assign hours to how long it should take to work on that task. There's also a to-do section of TimeSolv. We can go to plan task to-dos, and you can create new plan task to-dos for the client and matter. Then when it comes time to, you can add time to those. This could be your to-do list, and it automatically populates everything based on the to-do that you created, and it can create a time entry that way. Or right on the time entry screen that all of you are probably familiar with, you may have never noticed this plan task to-do link. Click on that. You'll see all the to-dos assigned to you. Select one, and see how it pre-populates the matter, the plan task to do, and so on. You just now need to fill in the hours in the description. So again, leveraging our to-dos and matter planning tools to help make sure you become that task-oriented so everyone knows what everyone is supposed to be doing, as I mentioned earlier. Again, if you need help on how to set this up in more detail, because there's a lot of detail you can do with this, you can get a hold of us at support@timesolv.com. Okay, time entry approval draft edits. We do have the ability where you can approve time before it gets placed on an invoice. If you're not familiar with that, you should become familiar. I can say, hey, Tony Hill here, his time that he enters cannot be placed on an invoice until Scott Laidlaw approves it. How does Scott Laidlaw know that he has time he needs to approve before it gets put on an invoice? He can go to time, approve time, and he'll see all the time entries that he needs to approve. He can make edits, he can change it, he can hit select and then hit save or reject it if he needs to. This is a way for those that are used to doing all of the kind of approval of time at the draft invoice level. Do it ahead of time before you even create drafts. If you are set up as an approver and you have time to be approved, we can notify you via email. You get it twice a day. We're not inundating you with every time somebody creates a time entry, but you can do those approvals right away. On that same thread, if you're used to kind of printing out a draft invoice and making edits, one way you can do that, if you have admin privileges as somebody who makes edits, you're looking at your list of draft invoices here, simply click on the dollar amount of that draft. Then there's everything you would need to possibly edit on that invoice you can do right here, including time entries. I don't have any time entries on this particular draft. I think it was a fixed fee invoice, that's why. But you can make any time entries that you have. Let me see if I can find one that has some time entries. This one does. You can edit these time entries right here before they go out. You can update them and change them. You can hold them, in other words, remove them from the draft invoice. All of the edits you ever need to do to a draft can be done simply by clicking on the dollar amount. So I want to make sure everyone is aware of that feature. Okay, quickly as well, when it comes to getting paid, we have a deal with LawPay. We integrate with LawPay, and this is important. LawPay is kind of the de facto standard for credit card processing in the legal industry. They're approved by just about every bar association in the country. Between now and May 31st, they are offering, if you come to this page right here, which I'm going to put in the, put the whole thing into the chat here. You can start using LawPay's monthly fee will be waived for 6 months. Okay, so for 6 months, you don't have to pay their fee. There's the link. I just put it in the chat, the webinar chat. You can see that. Okay. When you're hooked up to LawPay and TimeSolv, it allows your clients through a portal to pay their invoice online. I won't go through all the details because we're running up against time here, but our support can help you in building that integration and getting the client portal up and running. What it essentially looks like is the person themselves, in this case, it is Joe Blow. He has portal access. I'll just show you what it looks like for your clients. This is what your clients would see. Person's name, you set this all up. Here's an invoice that they need to pay. So they can check this box. They can pay this invoice. They could pay via credit card. This is where the integration comes into play. Once they put in the credit card number and all the information you normally would, and they hit submit, LawPay processes it. TimeSolv allocates that payment to the invoice. The invoice is marked at paid. You're getting paid immediately. If you're not taking advantage of this, this is a great time. You can sign up for LawPay using that link I put in the chat. And for 6 months, you have no monthly fee. And you'll find that this is, if you're worried about the cash flow for your firm during this COVID-19 pandemic, set this up, send your invoices via email with a link in that email that gets people to this portal where they can then pay their invoice quickly, immediately. Okay, I can't emphasize that enough. Okay, I have run out of time. Any questions on, oh, one last thing I do want to mention as we're going just a tad over here. We do offer a service called outsourced legal billing. It is an upgrade in price. We offer the ability to do the billing work for you. You as a firm only have to enter your time into your TimeSolv account. We then create the draft bills. You get to obviously approve them, make edits, whatever the case may be. We send out the invoices. We then, once you record payments, that's the one thing you have to do is record payments, then we will allocate those payments to invoices. We will do leads billing if you need to do leads billing. It's a resource to take advantage of if you find your billing situation is taking a weird turn of events here. Okay, people are saying they don't see the link for LawPay in the chat yet. I'm seeing it in the, oh, hang on a second. Let me do that one more time. There we go. I think that should be available to everybody now. I believe I had it was sending to all panelists and attendees. So I think we're good now. At least I hope so. Yes, will we send a link to this recording? So absolutely. As soon as this gets processed by Zoom, usually takes an hour or two, I will make sure this gets emailed out to everyone that registered, and you can pass this on to your colleagues at work as well. And again, more importantly, for those that are TimeSolv users here, if you need help or questions with any of the tools that I showed you, I know I went through it quick. This wasn't a tutorial session. Please get a hold of us at support@timesolv.com. You can visit us at our website or call 800-715-1284. Yeah, so for anyone that wants to set up a question coming in, the TimeSolv orientation, the one-on-one, call us at support or send an email and we'll set up a one-on-one session that you can do something with our support team. We're more than happy to schedule one using Zoom where we can do a screen share and get you set up, okay? I want to be respectful of everyone's time. I thank you all for being a part of this webinar. Again, I will make sure that recording gets sent out. I appreciate everyone's time. Stay healthy, stay safe, and let me know if you have any questions about anything that you learned here today when I send out my email. So thank you all very much. Have a great rest of the day. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll hopefully talk soon. Thanks, everybody.